All right. Back again with another video for you guys. And today what I have for you guys is my versus/comparison video between the Moto X PE edition and the Moto E4. And real quick before I get started and jump in, just want to let you guys know that this whole video is being recorded with the 13 megapixel wide angle camera on the LG G6. So you guys let me know how the audio sounds and let me know how the video looks. Also, I am shooting outside today, so I just want to let you guys know I'm not responsible for any background noise you may hear. There may be people walking their dogs. There may be people jogging, exercising, cutting their grass. Y'all might hear cars going by, so on and so forth. I want to apologize and let you guys know I'm not responsible for that. But it was so nice out today, I had to record a video in my usual spot. I'm in the same spot I would record my camera samples, but I figured it's so nice, why not shoot a versus/comparison video out here today. So just wanted to get that quick little disclaimer out the way before we get started. Now, jumping straight in, the first thing I want to talk about with you guys is the overall build quality and design on both devices. Let's start with the Moto X PE edition. So from a build quality and design standpoint, I have to say Motorola did a great job with this one. This was back at the time before Lenovo bought them. They were actually owned by Google when the Moto X PE edition came out. So we got fast and expedient updates, and we got really good overall build quality with a nice big design. So from a build quality and design standpoint, when it comes to the Moto X PE edition, now I apologize, mine's a little bit dirty. It lives its life in a case when I'm not doing comparison or versus videos. So it may be a little bit dirty. Didn't really wipe it down before I push record, so I apologize. But from a build quality and design standpoint, as I get a bunch of notifications on every device that I own. Sorry guys. From a build quality and design standpoint, I have to say Motorola, who is now owned by Lenovo, did a great job with this one. There's no rattling or creaking of any kind. The device has a nice solid weight in hand. It's very good. Buttons are very grippy, clicky, and tactile with no issues. So great job on the build quality on the Moto X PE edition, Motorola. All right. Now next, let's talk about the build quality and design on the Moto E4. And again, you're going to hear more of the same with a little bit upgrades here and there, downgrades here and there. Now, when it comes to the build quality and design on the E4, again, Motorola, now owned by Lenovo, did a great job on this one. The back has a nice texture to it. It's smooth, but still has a nice grip to it. The buttons are very tactile and clicky with a nice feedback to them. It's very nice. The overall weight in hand is very good. It's very solid in the hands with a really nice weight to it. So again, this guy has a removable back cover and a removable battery. And I must say, even with the removable back cover and removable battery, the fact that Motorola, now owned by Lenovo, could give you a nice solid build quality here with no creaking or crunching is actually pretty good. So overall, the build quality on the Moto E is really good. Now, in terms of build quality on both devices, I have to call it a tie. Both of these guys, in my opinion, have what I would call a utilitarian/functionalist approach, which means there's no flash, there's no pizzazz. It's just everything you need in a nice user-friendly package. So that's why I'd have to call it a tie. You got grippy rubber textures on each device. All right, they both feel very solid in the hands. All the button placements and buttons are very tactile and clicky with no crunching or flex on either device. So that's why I would call it a tie in terms of build quality and design for both of these devices. Okay. Now let's talk about the displays on these guys. Let's start with the Moto E here. Now up front, dead center here, you have a 5-inch 720p display that has a screen density of 294. And I gotta tell you guys, from a day-to-day usage with this display, it's been really good. Now I got the brightness cranked because we're outside in the shade and I wanted to show up real good on camera. But in terms of day-to-day usage, sorry guys, in terms of day-to-day usage, it's really good display as I get notifications from just about everybody. I apologize. It's a really good display. And for those of you who want to see the actual numbers, let me just pull it up for you here. So right there, as you can see, it's a 5-inch IPS LCD display with a screen density of 294, and it is a 720p display. And in terms, again, of day-to-day usage, I've had no issues. This guy gets really bright outdoors, and it just works. No issues with the display, no issues whatsoever. Now, in regular day-to-day usage, now this is cranked up because I'm using it for this video, I generally keep the display at about 25% indoors and about 30% outdoors, and again, I have no issues with the display. Alright, now, jumping over to the Moto X PE edition here, up front, dead center here, we have a 5.7-inch quad HD display. That's 1440 by 2560. And this guy has a screen density of 515, I want to say. And really, again, it's more of the same. You have a big, beautiful, bright display, and I've had no issues with it. In day-to-day usage, I had no issues. Now, I did find that outside in day-to-day usage, I gotta keep this one a little bit higher. Outside, using it on the daily, I keep it at about 50%. Inside, I keep it at about 25%. So there is that difference there. But other than that, let me pull this up for you guys who want to see the numbers. So right there, you can see IPS LCD, 5.7 inches, Quad HD, 1440p by 2560, and a screen density of 520. My mistake, guys. But putting all those numbers aside, again, in day-to-day usage, this guy has been phenomenal, and I've had no issues with the display. So, that being said, because y'all already know what I'm going to say, in terms of display, you guys are probably wondering who won. Well, putting all the numbers and resolutions and screen sizes aside, because y'all know me, a good display is a good display. It could be 1080p, it could be Quad HD, it could be 720p, it could be 480p. If it's a good display, I'm going to tell you it's a good display. If it's a bad display, I'm going to tell you it's a bad display. And putting all the numbers aside, I would have to call this a tie. Both of these devices have really good displays. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to personal preference. You want the 5-inch display or you want the 5.7-inch display. But putting that aside, I'm going to have to call the displays department a tie. Really good displays on either device. Now, let's keep it moving. Now, let's talk about the hardware and the software on both of these devices. Okay, let's start off with the Moto X PE edition here. Hardware-wise, on the Moto X PE edition, we have 3 gigs of RAM with 16 gigs of internal storage, at least on this model. Now, you have other models with 32 gigs and 64 gigs. This is the 16 gig model. So you have 3 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage. You have microSD card expansion, and plus, you can use your microSD card as internal storage in this one. So that means that you can use your microSD card as adaptable storage. Alright, you have a 3000 milliamp hour battery. You have a 21 megapixel camera on the rear, which is capable of 4K video recording at 30 frames a second, 1080p video recording at 30 frames a second, and 720p video recording at 30 frames a second, and 720p slow motion video at 120 frames. Okay, up front, we have a 5.7-inch quad HD display, as I've said, and we have a 5 megapixel front-facing camera with flash, with dual front-firing speakers, and your light and proximity sensors for your Moto display, which is what you can see right there. All you have to do is wave across, and there you go. Alright, other hardware includes, this guy is running a Snapdragon 808 processor and an Adreno 418 GPU. Alright, now, jumping into the software. This guy is running pretty much a stock version of Android 6.0 Marshmallow. Okay? Now, they did say that this guy was going to be slated to get the 7.0 Nougat update, but I've had this guy forever, and I have not gotten my update yet. And you guys can see right there, it is running Android 6.0 Marshmallow. And yeah. But other than that, it's pretty much a bare bones stock version of Marshmallow, and that's pretty much what I like from Motorola, because they didn't really skin it too heavily or tweak it too heavily. All they really did was add in their Moto tweaks here. Oh wait, wrong one. My bad. All they really did was add in their Moto tweaks. But in particular, with the Moto X PE edition, you have your Moto actions, so you can pick up the display as it approaches the seat. You can do the Moto display, which is what I showed y'all. You could chop for the flashlight. You know what I'm saying? Quick chop for the flashlight. Quick chop to turn it off. Twist to launch the camera. Real easy with it. You could twist again to get to the front-facing camera. And then you have your Moto voice. So in particular with this one, you could program a custom launch phrase and interact with your phone strictly using your voice. You don't even have to pick it up or wake the display. Now I have that turned off right now in favor of Google Now, but that really was really nice to use, and it still works really, really good. Even though right now today, I pretty much use Google Now commands for everything instead of the Moto voice. But it was really good, and I used it for quite some time, and it still works with no problems. Now, there is a slight delay when you use the Moto voice as opposed to the Google Now. That's why I switched, but it's really nice to see. Other than that, in terms of software, it's been a very fluid and smooth experience with the occasional app slowdown and hiccups when I got a bunch of apps open in the background. Other than that, I haven't had any issues with the Moto X PE edition aside from the Bluetooth, but we're going to talk about that when we get to the Bluetooth section. But in terms of software and overall fluidity, it has been an enjoyable experience. So again, in terms of hardware and software for the Moto X PE edition, it's really, really good. Okay? And I don't even think I said it, but up front, you got a 5 megapixel camera, which can take 1080p videos and 720p and do 720p 120 frames slow motion, in case I forgot to say. But that pretty much covers the hardware and software on the Moto X PE edition. Alright, jumping over to the Moto E4, hardware-wise, we got 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of onboard storage with microSD card expansion, which again can be used as adaptable storage, so you can use your microSD card as internal storage. Other hardware includes, we have an 8 megapixel camera on the back with LED flash, okay, and that camera is capable of recording 1080p video at 30 frames a second, 720p video at 30 frames a second, and 480p video at 30 frames a second. Okay? Okay. Other hardware includes, we got a 2800 milliamp hour user replaceable battery. Wow, can't even get it out today. So what that means is this back cover does come off and you can replace the battery as well as change out micro SD cards and SIM cards if you have more than one carrier. Other hardware, we have a Snapdragon 427 quad-core processor and an Adreno 308 GPU. Alright, jumping to the front, we have a 5-inch 720p display with a screen density of 294, as I've said. We have a 5-megapixel front-facing camera, which can record the same video resolutions as the rear, so 1080p 30 frames, 720p 30 frames, and 480p 30 frames. Okay, then we got our front-facing flash. On the bottom, we have our capacitive fingerprint sensor. Alright, and it does work like a charm. Now, jumping into the software, we're pretty much running a stock version of Android 7.1.1 Nougat. Okay, so you can see right here, Motorola pretty much left the software pretty much unmolested here. Now you may see a few different things because this is the Amazon supported version, but it is what it is. All that means is I get the lock screen ads. But y'all can see it pretty much is an unmolested version of 7.1.1 Nougat. And pretty much, again, all Motorola did was add a few custom features here. In particular, with the Moto E4, you got your double press of the power button to launch the camera instead of your quick gesture there. Alright. You also have your Moto display, and then you have your one button nav, and you can shrink the screen. If this is not one hand friendly for you, you have a gesture to shrink the screen. Wow, can't talk. Sorry guys. And then this is your one button nav. So you turn that on, you can use your fingerprint sensor to navigate through your device. So swipe left takes you back. Swipe right does your recent apps. Tap takes you home. Tap and hold turns off the display. Longer hold activates Google Now. And it really is, guys. Y'all can see I'm very fluid with it because I really like it and I use it regularly. But for this video, I didn't really want to have too many mispresses. That's why I had it turned off. Other than that, you have your Moto display similar to the Moto X, except for this one, it only comes on when it senses motion. Whereas the Moto X here, you have the sensors, so I could swipe across and you can see the display lights up there. It's kind of hard to see because I'm sitting in the shade. But pretty much the same, except for this one requires motion, whereas this one has the sensors on the device. Okay? So that's pretty much it for the software. And again, I must say that was pretty nice to see. And I really do like and appreciate Motorola's approach to Android software, because at least to me, I think they use the thing, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's just throw in what we think people might use. And honestly, that's what I believe every smartphone manufacturer or company should do. Don't throw useless features at us that you don't think we're going to use. Just throw in stuff that you yourself would use, okay? Don't go over the top with it. Just think logically. And I like that. So, again, talking about software and day-to-day usage is a very fluid and smooth experience with the occasional app slowdown with a bunch of apps open in the background. Alright, so that being said, the hardware and software on the Moto E is really good. Now, you guys are probably wondering, which one do I prefer when it comes to the hardware and software? And again, I have to call it a tie. Both of these guys are very fluid and responsive in day-to-day usage with little to no issues aside from the occasional app slowdown with a ton of apps open in the background. So in the hardware and software standpoints, I'd have to call it a tie. Now, let's keep it moving. Up next, I just want to talk about the Wi-Fi in both of these guys. And pretty much, it's the same, but slightly different across the board. For the Moto X PE edition, you have Wi-Fi 802.11 BGN and AC. AC just means you got your dual band, so it could change simultaneously between the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band. Whereas the differentiating factors on the Moto E, you have Wi-Fi 802.11 BGN with support for the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band. So there's no dual band in this guy. But that aside, all that tech mumbo jumbo aside, in my daily usage, I would have to say that both of these guys, in terms of Wi-Fi, perform beautifully. No issues with Wi-Fi. Whenever I had a good, solid Wi-Fi signal, didn't have any problems on either device. Alright, for more information, please check out my full reviews on both of these devices, which will be linked down below in the video description. Now let's keep it moving, and I'm going to give you guys a live Wi-Fi test, which will also double as your speaker test. So let's pull up a YouTube video here. I think I have one preloaded already. And let's pull it up over here as well. And also, I've already maxed the volumes on both devices to 100%. So y'all can see how these speakers perform. And you know what? Let's just start off with the Moto E4 here. So enjoy, guys. I'm going to play it at max volume. I'm going to scrub through so you can see the performance. And we're going to keep it moving. So here we go, guys. Enjoy. Alright, real quick Wi-Fi test. Let's jump over to the Moto X PE edition. Give you some more of the same here. Alright, enjoy, guys. Okay. Alright, so real quick Wi-Fi test for you guys, real quick speaker test. So again, as I've said, in terms of overall Wi-Fi and day-to-day usage, I'd have to call it a tie. Wow, really nice car over there. Needs a little bit of work though. My bad, guys, got distracted. That car was nice. But in terms of Wi-Fi and day-to-day usage, I'd have to call it a tie. Really no issues. Wherever I had good Wi-Fi reception, no problems. Now, when we talk about the internal speakers on this guy, I'd have to give the W to the Moto X PE edition. Now, that does not mean that the speaker on the Moto E4 is bad. It lacks that oomph. It's still crisp, clear, and it gets decently loud. But compared to the Moto X PE edition that has 2 instead of 1, you get is that much more better. I'm having trouble putting it in words, but it's that much more head and shoulders better, and the volume and sounds a lot more deep and crisp overall, and volume wise it gets just that much more louder. That's the best way I couldn't explain it. Sorry guys, I hope y'all understand what I'm trying to say. But in terms of speakers, I'd have to give it to the Moto X PE Edition. Alright, so now let's keep it moving. Up next, I just want to talk about the Lte Bands supported in both of these guys. And pretty much, it's a tie across the board, at least on paper. Let me explain. Now, on the Moto X PE Edition here, this guy, and I can vouch for this. This guy will work on any major carrier in the United States and any GSM carriers abroad. You literally have LTE band support and GSM, HSPA plus, CDMA, WCDMA band support for every carrier in the United States and GSM carriers abroad. It's very plug and play. You don't even really have to mess with APNs. You put in the SIM, the phone recognizes it, and goes out and programs the APNs automatically. Now, in some cases, you may have to, but with the Moto X PE Edition, I've never run into an issue where I have to program the APNs. I just drop the SIM in, and it goes out and finds the service and works no problem. Alright? And really, the same can be said with the Moto E4. Again, it's marketed as a device that could be used on any major carrier, and it's supposed to have bands for all the major carriers in the United States. Notice my framing of words there, supposed to on paper. Now, the reason why I say that is T-Mobile and AT&T customers have reported no problems. Any of their MVNOs have reported no problems. Cricket, Metro PCS, so on and so forth, no problems. But Verizon and Sprint customers have reported some problems. There have been a few Sprint customers that said they can't get their Moto E4s activated. There's been some Verizon customers that say they've been having some issues with their Moto E4 and the Moto E4 Plus. So, although on paper it says that it should work for every major carrier and it has the bands for every major carrier, you take that with a grain of salt. So, at least on paper, the Moto X PE Edition and the Moto E4 are supposed to be tied. But in actual usage, I'm going to have to give it the edge to the Moto X PE Edition. I've actually tested this one without issue. Now you guys stay tuned. I will be trying to test setting this up on Sprint, and I will let you guys know down in the video description of the full review for this guy whether or not I had any issues on Sprint. So I will update that down in the comments of the full review for the Moto E4. But that being said, I'm going to have to give the edge in band support to the Moto X PE Edition. Alright? But if you have a GSM carrier, then either one of these devices should work for you. Alright? Now, let's keep it moving. Up next, this is where I would talk about the Bluetooth support. And really, we're not even going to get into this. This is a win for the Moto E4. Hands down. This guy has Bluetooth 4.1 technology in it, and it just works. And it works without issue. Whereas the Moto X PE Edition, over time, developed a Bluetooth bug. The Moto X PE Edition does have Bluetooth 4.1 in it, I believe. But over time and usage, it developed a bug where if I connect up a pair of Bluetooth headphones or a Bluetooth speaker and what have you, and then I turn off the speaker, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes the phone will not recognize that I disengaged a Bluetooth speaker and will not re-engage the external speakers. Then I have to go through the trouble of toggling on and off the Bluetooth, turning my phone on to airplane mode and turning it back off, or restarting the whole device in general. So it's because of that little issue that I'm giving the Bluetooth department to the Moto E4. Now, when the Moto X PE Edition's Bluetooth works how it's supposed to, or decides to work how it's supposed to, then there's no issues across the board. But since 9 times out of 10, I know I'm going to run into that issue when I try to connect up a Bluetooth device, I have to point that out for you guys. So in terms of Bluetooth, although the Bluetooth on these guys are the same, got to give the edge to the Moto E4. Next, let's talk about the GPS in both of these devices. Now, GPS-wise, I'm very happy to report that I've had no issues with the GPS on either device. No issues whatsoever. Let me go ahead and pull this up. Turn-by-turn navigation and anything dealing with the Bluetooth was a joy. No issues whatsoever. It locked on within seconds and I was good to go. So you can see right there. So if you're very GPS dependent like myself, you should have no issues with the Bluetooth on either device. Sorry, I swiped over and I didn't mean to, but it is what it is. So Bluetooth wise, I have to call it a tie. Next, let's talk about the call quality and speaker call quality in both of these. And again, this is where I have to call it a tie again across the board. Ooh, I see some clouds. It might start raining. So let's speed this up. So when we talk about call quality and speaker call quality, in terms of the internal receivers, I've had no issues. Calls were very crisp, clear, and loud, and I had no problems. Keep in mind, I use both of these guys on T-Mobile. And whenever I had good cell reception, I was easily able to take a call, no problems. In particular, where the Moto E4 gets the edge is that the E4 also incorporates Wi-Fi calling, where the Moto X PE Edition does not. So as long as I have good Wi-Fi reception, even if I don't have a data connection, I can still make and receive my phone calls. Or even if I don't have LTE connection or voice over LTE, as long as I have good Wi-Fi connection, I can still make and receive phone calls and send and receive text messages. So that is where the Moto E4 gets the slight leg up there. But in terms of call quality and speaker call quality, it's a tie. Speaker calls, they got very crisp, clear, and loud. But again, I just wish that they just got a little bit louder on either device. That's just me. But other than that, it was a joy to use for cell phone calls and speakerphone calls as well. So let's keep it moving. Up next, this is where I would talk about the camera interfaces. But in the interest of speed, I'm just going to give y'all my thoughts. If y'all want to see more about the camera interfaces, please check out my full reviews, which will be linked down below in the video description. After that, we're going to jump into my thoughts and impressions of the cameras overall. Again, in the interest of speed, I'm just going to give y'all my thoughts and impressions. If y'all want to hear more about the photos and videos on either of these cameras, please be sure to follow me on Google Plus for the photo samples on either of these cameras, or check out the video samples playlist, which is available on YouTube, to check out the video samples on either of these cameras. But talking about the camera interfaces on either of these cameras, I'd have to give the slight edge to the Moto X PE Edition. Now, it's very easy to use. It's very simple and straightforward. Launching the camera takes no thinking. It's just a quick twist of the wrist, as I've demonstrated, and it's just really easy to pick up and snap a photo or take a video, what have you. Now, although the Moto X PE Edition wins out in the camera interface department, that does not mean by any way, shape, or form that the camera interface on the Moto E4 is bad, but it just takes a few more steps on the interface on the Moto E4. Not much, but just like one extra step, as opposed to where on the Moto X PE Edition, you snap it. You twist the wrist, you line up your shot, you touch the screen to take the picture. Now, you can do that on the Moto E4 as well, but you got to turn that on in the settings. Out of the box, there's no twist gesture, but there is a double tap of the power button. And then once you're in, you line up the shot, and you still have to press the on-screen shutter button. Now, in the settings, you can do it so you tap the screen and take the photo, but that's not readily available out of the box. You got to dive into the settings to find that. That's why, in my opinion, the Moto X PE Edition gets the slight edge in the camera interface department. Now, in terms of overall photos and videos, I would have to say it's a tie. In the right lighting situations or what have you, you're going to be able to get some really good videos and some really good photos on either device. Okay? And yes, I know some of you guys may say, but the Moto X PE Edition has 4K and slow motion and all that good stuff. Yes, I understand that, whereas the Moto E does not. But taking all that stuff aside, going photo for photo and video for video, these are some really good cameras. And they take really good photos and videos regardless. Okay? So, on that aspect, I'd have to call it a tie. Keep in mind, this is all in my opinions. Everybody's opinion may vary. This is how I feel about it. Okay? Now, moving on, next thing I will talk about is the gaming. And this is where, again, I have to give the slight W to the Moto X PE Edition. The games just ran a touch smoother, in my opinion, on the Moto X PE Edition than they did on the Moto E4. Now, it's still playable on the Moto E4, but you're just going to get a little bit of hiccup, a little bit of stutter over time, where it's going to stay. You're still going to get a little bit of hiccup and stutter on the Moto X PE Edition, but it's going to stay smoother. You're going to have smoother overall gameplay. Okay? So, in terms of gaming, I give it to the Moto X PE Edition. Now, next, in terms of benchmarks, do I even have to say it? The Moto X PE Edition takes this one hands down. Now, in the interest of speed, I'm just going to talk about it. If y'all do want to see the actual synthetic benchmarks and the numbers, please check out my full reviews on each of these devices, which will be linked down below in the video description. Alright? But that being said, y'all already know what I'm going to say. Benchmarks mean absolutely nothing. What matters is an overall fluid and fast user experience, which I believe both of these devices do in spades. That being said, the Moto X PE Edition does win hands down, without a doubt, when it comes to synthetic benchmarks. But it is what it is. Now next, this is where we would talk about the overall battery life and the charge times of both of these devices. And let's just beat this dead elephant to death right now. Let's start off with the Moto X PE Edition. Now, in terms of battery life on the Moto X PE Edition, keep in mind there are a bunch of factors that go into this, and this is just my particular results. But in terms of battery life, pretty much regardless of what I tried to do, I'm only able to get anywhere from about 3.5 hours to 4 hours of screen on time. Okay? In terms of usage, probably able to get about 5 hours of overall usage. But in terms of screen on time, which is one of the more important factors, I'm only able to get about 3.5, 4 hours of screen on time. And that's regardless of how I use the device. Alright? Now, one saving grace to that is that this guy, the Moto X PE Edition, does incorporate Motorola's turbocharging. And that means that this guy goes from 0 to 100 real quick. In particular, when we talk about that, when we do 10% to 100, we're talking about a little bit over an hour. 15% to 100, about an hour. 20% to 100, about 45 minutes, give or take a minute or two. So this guy gets back up and running really, really quick. Keep in mind your results may vary depending on when and where and what charger you use when you put this guy on the charger. Alright? That being said, let's jump over to the Moto E4. Now, particularly, again, when we talk about overall battery life, I found that I could easily get through a day and have anywhere from about 6.5 hours to just over 10 hours of screen on time. That equates to about 12 to 20 hours of overall usage. Keep in mind, your guys' results may vary, and depending on how you use your devices, you will get more or less overall battery time. But again, in my particular results, and to see the actual, and to see the actual numbers behind it, please check out my full reviews of either of these guys, which will be linked down below in the video description. But again, in screen on time, you're looking at anywhere from about 6 hours to 6.5 hours to about just over 10 hours. Okay? Now, where you do take the hit, however, is that the Moto E4 does not have any form of quick charging. Now, yes, I apologize. I did make that mistake in my unboxing because I thought it had quick charging, but it does not. This guy has regular old charging, micro USB charging, no quick charging in here. So what does that mean? That means that on average, it's going to take you about an hour and a half to a little bit over 2.5 hours to get a full charge. Keep in mind that may vary depending on what percent you put the device on the charger and whether or not you have background data and things running while you're charging the device. So if you have your data on, you have your GPS on, you have your Bluetooth on, you have data syncing to the device, you have your brightness set to a certain point, it's going to take a lot longer to charge as opposed to having your Bluetooth off, your location off, your brightness turned down, and charging the device. Or adversely, if you turn the device off altogether and charge it, it's going to charge faster as well. Okay? So keep that in mind. So, who wins what? In terms of overall battery life, I'm going to give that to the Moto E4 here. Easily. 6 to 10 hours of screen on time, it's an easy W. No brainer there. In terms of overall charge times, we're going to easily give that to the Moto X PE edition. I mean, come on guys. 45 minutes to an hour to get back up to a full charge, depending on where you put it on the charger at. Come on, don't even have to think about it. So, win in the overall battery life, win in the charging. Trade blows there. Now we've reached the end of the video where I talk about the price and I give you guys my final thoughts and a recommendation or two. So let's start off with the Moto X PE edition. Right now today, you could pick up the Moto X PE edition from anywhere from about $160 to about a little over $400. Keep in mind that varies because you can pick it up at places like Amazon and you got to pay a varying amount for the different model tiers. So this is the 16 gig model, but you also have the 32 gig model and the 64 gig model. Alright? Keep in mind though, they all have expandable storage and they all have the same screen size and same built-in battery with dual front-firing speakers and cameras. So you're really just paying the extra money for the storage options when in my opinion, you really don't have to because you have micro SD card expansion with adaptable storage. Okay? So that being said, you can pick this guy up again anywhere from about $160 to a little bit over $400. And what do you get for that? Well, you're getting some really good cameras. You're getting a really good display. Okay? You're getting some really good front-firing speakers. And all in all, you're getting a really good stock Android device with a few Motorola touches thrown in. Okay? So that's the Moto X PE edition. Now, jumping over to the Moto E4. This guy you can have right now today from anywhere for about $40 to $145. Let me explain. Now, this is available on Metro PCS for about 40 to 50 bucks. This is available on Verizon for about $70 to $80. This is available on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, then you can get the Amazon ad-supported version, which is what I have here. And you can pick that up for a little bit over $100 after taxes, and you get that free 2-day shipping. If you don't want the Amazon ads, then this is available on Amazon for about $130, $140 to $45 after tax. Keep in mind, you still have to factor in shipping and handling as well. So that's that. So if you wanted to pick up the Moto E4, what are you getting? You're getting an overall good device. You're getting some really good cameras. You're getting some really good stock software with a few nice features thrown in. You're getting some really good battery life at a really good price. Really good. So, that all being said, now we've reached the end of the video. I've done slid this table all over the place. Hope it doesn't break while I'm recording. Feels like it wants to though. Slid this table all over the place. You guys are probably wondering which one I would recommend. And again, it comes down to personal preference and what you want. If you want a big display with dual front firing speakers and some really good cameras, but not so good battery life, and still want a stock Android experience with a few Motorola touches thrown in, get the Moto X PE edition. Okay? If you want an all-around good device with some really good cameras, again, user removable, user replaceable, 2800 milliamp hour battery